Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss situation in Ukraine on the 27th of June. Today we have a lot of very interesting stories from both sides. Today we have a lot of interesting updates, so let's start. And this video we are going to start with the rocket stories. Today we know that there was a lot of rocket attack. The Russians bombed with the rockets a lot of military objects in Ukraine, and this morning we got first updates that the Russians launched 4 rockets towards Kiev. And according to the report of Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, all those 4 rockets reached the targets. Everything is okay, but there is one important note about this. If we are going to talk about anti-missile defense system of Kiev, there are 2 types of weapon for these purposes. First one is S-300 system, and the second one is Buk M1 system. All these 2 systems is to fight against the enemy's rockets. So as I told you, the Russians sent 4 rockets towards Kiev and they reached the target. But the thing is that the Ukrainian system, they spotted all those rockets. The Ukrainian S-300 systems, they spotted all those 2 rockets, and the Ukrainians launched their rockets against the Russian rockets. So it was a very successful operation. So the Ukrainians spotted enemy rockets, and they did everything to destroy those rockets in the air. But the thing is that there is another type of weapon the Ukrainians are using in this anti-air, anti-rocket system. They're using like Buk M1 system. And there are a lot of systems around Kiev, in different parts of Kiev, in the west, in the south, in the east, in the north. So somewhere there is a S-300 system, for example, on the west. On the east there is a Buk M1 system, and so on. And all these anti-air forces are unsynchronized. So they are not working together. Everybody work by their own. So they spot something in the sky, in the air, and they attack. So as soon as the Russians launched those 4 rockets, the Ukrainian S-300 system spotted them, and the Ukrainians launched their rockets to stop the Russians' rockets. But those Buk M1 systems also spotted the Ukrainians' rockets that were flying to stop the Russian rockets. And as soon as they spotted, they successfully destroyed the Ukrainian rockets that were launched to destroy the Russian rockets. So everything wouldn't be so fun if it wasn't like the war. So that was the story about Kiev. Another rocket story is from Kremenchuk. This town in the middle of Ukraine. This town is located on the river, on the Dnieper, this river. And today the Russians also launched their rockets, and somehow one of these rockets got the mall. Big mall, and according to the president of Ukraine, according to Ukrainian sources, there were around 1,000 people there. So these rockets got this mall. There was a big fire, and according to the Ukrainian sources, there were 2 people who were killed, and some few dozens were wounded. So this is the story about that attack. Of course, the Ukrainian sources and the West sources announced that it was like attack against the civilians. It wasn't like attack by mistake. It was like targeted attack. But let's take a look a little bit wide in this situation. First of all, I remind you that a week ago there was another attack in this area towards Cherkasy. This is the town that located on the west-north from Kremenchuk. This is Kremenchuk, where the Russians attacked mall. By mistake or not by mistake, according to the Russians, of course, by mistake. According to the Ukrainians, it was like a targeted attack. And a week ago, there was attack toward Cherkasy, and the Russians were attacking the bridge. This is the only railroad bridge that connects the west side of Ukraine with the east side of Ukraine, and this bridge were destroyed. If you take, there is no photo, but this bridge is destroyed. So there is no way to use this bridge for the railroads. So, and today there was another attack towards Kremenchuk, and if we take a look at the mall, this mall, you see that there is right behind this mall a railroad station, and not just the railroad station, there is a plant in this area This is industrial zone where the Ukrainians are trying to repair their ammunition, tanks, maybe rockets. So it's a very big industrial complex here. So I think that the Russians were targeting this area, mainly the railroad, because this is also the only bridge that connects the west side of Ukraine with the east side through this area. Furthermore, on the north there is like Kremenchuk oil refinery plant, and for example, if we're talking about the oil support and something like this, of course everything are going through this bridge, through this station towards this oil refinery. So we understand that August and July is very soon, and we understand that sooner or later the West support is going to come. So that's why the Russians started to shell the railroad infrastructure in this area, tried to separate the west side from the east side. So that was an attack, and according to this attack, 2 civilians, according to the Ukrainian sources, 2 civilians were killed, and a lot of them, a few dozens, were wounded. So this is the story about this is the rocket story that had place today. Now let's move to our Lysychansk agglomeration. The west source map has been updated. To tell the truth, I wasn't expected that I'm gonna see these updates, because if you remember, if we were talking about our famous Toshkovka, we saw the final update about Toshkovka just like before all this entire area collapsed. But as according to the west source map, we see that the Russians, right in front of Lysychansk oil refinery, that they're on the south from Verkhnykamenka. So this update make me think that those stories that I told you a few days ago, that according to some sources I found in internet and so on, there was information that there was some kind of paratrooper operation towards Verkhnykamenka. This bridge was destroyed according to that operation, and the Russians took control over Verkhnykamenka. So this update makes me think that maybe something like this did happen, really happen, and that the Russians are still there in Verkhnykamenka on the south. We know that west sources map their update itself, but sometimes they show not the entire picture. So if we see that they show us something like this, that maybe the Russians are really in Verkhnykamenka, in this area. So maybe they control this area and they're waiting for the Russians, for the main Russian sources that should move from Nikolaevka towards this area with one purpose: to cut this road and to establish tactical operational encirclement of Lysychansk agglomeration. Furthermore, if we take a look at the Russian sources map, more and more updates are coming that Ovcharovka has fallen. There is one more update from the Russian sources. If you see this map, the Russians have moved their gray line, their gray zone. They still don't show that this area is under the Russians, but they moved their gray line to the north. According to the Russian sources, some sources, more and more sources, are saying that this town is already under the Russians. Also, they're saying that in this area, 2 groups of foreigners were killed. There was around 14 foreigners, and one of the group was like something like a mix with people with foreigners from different countries, and one group that includes 14 soldiers from Georgia were killed in this area. It's according to the Russian sources. And furthermore, some Russian sources are saying that the Russians not just took Ovcharovka, but they continued their offensive operation towards Malorezantsevo. If you remember, we discussed the situation about Malorezantsevo, that it's a very dangerous operation because that it might be some kind of trap, because the Russians in this situation will be stuck between 2 industrial zones. From the west side, there are Lysychansk oil refinery, and from the east side, like these industrial zones. And in this case, the Russians who appears in this area between Ovcharovka and Malorezantsevo will appear under crossfire. And I think that this might be some kind of Ukrainian trap, but we'll see and follow. I would believe this information for 100% if there were no success and no progress near Lysychansk oil refinery. But today we got an interesting picture of Lysychansk oil refinery. This one, you see that this is our Lysychansk agglomeration. This on the northeast Lysychansk here, and this is our oil refinery. Like as it's like zoomed picture, it's like on the 27th of June. On the south and on the southeast, it's like our Vovcharovka. So this is Vovcharovka, this is oil refinery, and this on the west side, like between this one, this Верхняя Каменская, this one Верхняя Каменская, and between Верхняя Каменская and Lysychansk oil refinery, we have our Верхняя Каменка, this one, and this is it. So let's try to figure out, understand what is really going on there according to the fire. We see that the main fire is like the first spot on the west. You see this small point, this one is like right in front of Верхняя Каменская, so the first spot of fire is somewhere here. So the question is why? What is this fire is doing here? So there may be one answer that the Ukrainian forces were trying to send some reinforcement towards Верхняя Каменка from Верхняя Каменская, and that those forces were spotted and destroyed. So this is the reason why the fire might be here. Another fire on the south, this one. If we take a look at the Russian sources map, this fire is somewhere on this line, and as you can see, this is like a very big and fortified Ukrainian positions. There are a lot of trenches and so on. So as I see, the fire is somewhere here near the town Spirne. This town Spirne, this area. So that's mean that the Russians shelling this area heavily, trying to fix the Ukrainians in this area. If we are talking about Верхняя Каменка village, there is no fire at all. So, and this situation makes me think that maybe the Russians are not there because there are no fire at all, or the Russians have there so big progress and so big success, so that they were able to suppress Ukrainians around this area and fix them, and now they're not allowing them even to shell them at least a little bit. So maybe. So now let's take a look at our oil refinery. If you see, there is like two important places. First of all, the oil refinery itself, and some fire right on the south from this oil refinery. So I think that this thing that on the south is the Russians, because we see, according to the West sources map, that this area is under the Russians, and that they were moving from Vovcharovka, Nikolaevka, between Spirne and oil refinery towards the Верхняя Каменка. So as I see, they were trying to move like reinforcement towards the Russian forces that in Верхняя Каменка. And as I see, a lot of them were destroyed while this attack. I don't think that this is the Ukrainians, because if it were Ukrainians, they would stay in this oil refinery. I don't think that it's a very good idea to leave their fortress and to move on the open field. So something tells me that exactly on the south, this is the Russians who were destroyed by the Ukrainians on the crossfire between the oil refinery and the Spirne and the small town Spirne. Of course, we see that oil refinery is also under very heavy fire, so there was like front attack between like positions. The Ukrainians from oil refinery were using some anti-tank missiles, and the Russians with their tanks were trying to shell and reduce to ruins the front side of oil refinery. So this is the situation here. Also, we see that some fire is on the west in the town Vovcharovka, is in this area. Some fire is here. So maybe this also the situation. I don't know who was there, or there was Ukrainians. Maybe there was the Russians from this position were trying to attack oil refinery. I don't know. Another important fire is on the north, right here. Where I understand that this is some kind of reinforcement. The Ukrainians sent some reinforcement towards Lysychansk oil refinery, and that reinforcement were successfully destroyed right on the north. So I must say that oil refinery is the place with the heaviest clashes. The Russians did wise. They didn't start any offensive operations towards Malorezantsevo or Lysychansk. If we take a look at the town, you see that there is no fire at all in Lysychansk. That means that there is no active clashes, that the Russians are not trying to storm or assault town like with their wow effect. I see that they totally concentrated on the Lysychansk oil refinery. So I think that in a day or in a two, because of big fire and heavy damage, I think that this oil refinery is going to fall very soon. Furthermore, according to the LPR, People's Republic military authorities, they promised, like they told that 100%, the Lysychansk is going to fall maybe even by the end of this week. And the only one reason why he can tell this, if they are able to take Lysychansk oil refinery, because in this case it will be a 100% cauldron and there would be no way to evacuate from this area. Just one plan, we discussed this plan using the Russian forest, and that's it. So this is all about Lysychansk oil refinery and Lysychansk agglomeration. So the Russians are trying to establish control in this area. Furthermore, another important update about Izyum bridgehead. More and more news are coming from this back. If you remember, a few days ago I told you that the Russians crossed the river and take control over Nortsevka, this small town. The map is not updated, by the way. The Russian sources map is not updated as well. There was just a few confirmation about that, but today the Ukrainians sources announced that the Russians started some offensive operation. It was some kind of recco in combat towards Zaliman, towards this back. So the Russians are trying to touch, to feel, to understand the status of the Ukrainians' defense in this area, and it's very reasonable to tell the truth. We can return to our previous topic about the border, the length of the border, and the quantity of BTG per border. If you remember, according to the yesterday videos, the area between Balakleya and Pechenegin, there are just 3 BTG, Russian BTG battalions who tried to protect this area. And if we're talking about this area, that's enough, because you see there is rivers and the Ukrainians don't have a lot of options how to start their offensive. But if we take a look at this area and let's just calculate the front line exactly in this back, and we're gonna see that, for example, particularly in this area, the front line is around 43 kilometers. And all this area should be protected. Furthermore, there is a forest, and we know that Ukrainians like to use forests to cross and to start their offensive operation towards Izyum, like to attack the Russians in their back. If we imagine that the Russians are able to establish these front lines, so we see that there is just 15 kilometers. If we're talking about the defense state of the army, we see that in this case they need at least 1 BTG, like 15 kilometers per 1 BTG. And if we're talking about the current situation, we see that the Russians need to keep at least 3 BTG in this area, like to be on the safe side, like to understand that they're are able to protect this area. So that's why that means, what does it mean? That if the Russians are planning to fix their front lines like this way, so that's mean that they need those 2 BTGs somewhere else. Maybe the Russians are planning some offensive operation from Izyum. You see what's going on around Lysychansk bridgehead. This area is heavy shelling and the Russians are preparing for the final push. These forces in this area is around a week, in the peace state. There is no offensive, just there was an update about Sidorova. So I see that they're preparing to start offensive towards Barvinkovo and towards Slaviansk. We can say maybe from 3 directions, from Mayaki, from Khristishe, and of course from Barvinkovo. So there might be 3 offensive roads. Of course, for these purposes, those 2 BTGs might be very, very useful. So that's why I think maybe before the Russians are going to start this offensive operation, we're going to see some offensive operation for establishing the front line between Chepel, Nova Gusarovka, maybe Gusarovka, and Balakleya. Of course, it also will be a big problem for the Ukrainians, who is located on the line Chepel, Protokopivka, Zavgorodnya, Petrovskaya. So this is the situation exactly on Izyum bridgehead. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you that we condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, join my Patreon, put your likes, and enjoy your day. Thank you. Bye bye.